we saw them say, okay, we got to start raising rates. The market, through this big hissy fit, dropped 20% in a matter of 6 weeks. They actually reversed and started cutting rates again. And then it takes you into COVID, and we know what happened during the COVID crisis with them printing even more money. And that was the massive printing of money that we saw. Yeah. And so it's really everything. It's the inflation numbers, it's the economy that's going to be slowing, and it's also just the overall kind of wear and tear that it does on the consumer.
In this video, popular technical analyst Gareth Soloway gives prediction about the Bitcoin in 2023 in recent interview with Kitco News. According to him, the next Bitcoin bull market could begin in May 2023. He further discusses an outlook for the world's largest Bitcoin has historically very much correlated with the Nasdaq in the last 2 years. But Nasdaq has continued to fall while Bitcoin has been trading range-bound. Although some analysts say that Bitcoin has been correlated to gold, and now looking at the chart, it does seem to be a case now, so let's listen to Soloway that whether it's a correlation or coincidence.
I think Bitcoin is starting to get into that mode of being between the two, right? So I think what you're going to see, and this goes with the predictions, right, for 2023, where the Nasdaq and the S&P are going to continue down. But what I'm saying is Bitcoin's going to actually bottom out and actually start to turn up in 2023. So that means it has to decouple from risk assets. And the key to this is going to be regulation. As much as everyone hated the idea of regulation in crypto, now we see an FTX scenario and everyone's saying, all right, well, you need some transparency. You need audits. You need to see the books on these players. There has to be rules where they can't take customer funds and put it in other places. And I think that's going to be the key that really starts to trigger Bitcoin's next move up, is when you get regulation, institutions will finally start to come back to invest in Bitcoin.
Soloway further discusses the part of issue in CPI data that is coming out now 7.7%. The last reading steadily, which was 9.1, the peak back in June. As the Federal Reserve is spinning is that inflation has already peaked, and it will never see 9.1% again. So before listening to Soloway, that where are we going to go, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon so you never miss our videos.
That reflects that. And part of the issue here is that inflation is from the past year. So 12 months ago, how much has inflation gone up? Well, if we go 12 months ago, inflation numbers were already spiking. So what it's telling us is that yes, the inflation numbers are still going up. We're still seeing inflation, but the rate of increase is slowing. And that's what we see in these inflation numbers that are coming back in. And I think that's a common misconception. Everyone hears, oh, the inflation numbers were better than expected when they come in, but it's not saying prices are going down. It's just saying they're not rising quite as quickly. So I think investors have to be ready for that. I mean, it means that the prices at the grocery store are still going to be going up over time, just not as quickly. And it's going to hurt the economy. There's no doubt about it that investors and retail Americans in general are going to feel the crunch in 2023.
Soloway was asked about the stock market's recovering to its previous all-time highs until several years down the line, the Nasdaq following the text the dot-com bubble, which burst in 2001, and they didn't recover to its previous 2000 level until 14 years. So is it really going to happen again?
At least a minimum of 10 to 15 years. I want to show you some really cool charts here. So
take a look at the charts.
Here's the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and I'm going to show you guys why I'm showing this chart. So take a look at what we have here. You have this sort of pattern, which is basically this M pattern top in 1915 to looks like right around 1921. All right, and again, you're going to say, well, why the heck is Gareth going back to this period? And then look at the run that the Dow Jones Industrial Average had for the next, basically in the roaring 20s to obviously the Great Depression, the collapse, the crash of 29. And so if you look at that, and now let's just go right to the S&P 500. And this is where it gets crazy, right? So what we can see is that same sort of pattern formation from the dot-com bubble, the dot-com collapse, the real estate bubble, the real estate collapse, and then look at the massive run we've had.
As a physiological trader, Soloway gives controversial sub-20,000 prediction when other analysts gives prediction of about 100,000 or maybe even more. Moreover, he further discussed an update of his post-FTX price prediction for the crypto asset.
The whole crowd, when every single person is rushing into an asset, that's usually the mark of a top. And you saw this, we saw this in 2007 with the housing market when Time Magazine featured like the flipper, the home flipper on their front page. It's exactly the same thing. When you have the mom and pop saying, hey, this is so easy, I can't believe how much money I'm making, it's usually the end of the move. And then you look at the charts and you understand the massive move that has gone on, the double top that we saw in Bitcoin, all the factors out there, to me, it was one of those no-brainer scenarios. Plus, let's not forget that by November, when Bitcoin was topping, we knew the Fed was going to start raising rates, right? We already saw inflation spiking, and everyone was saying, oh, like, listen, inflation's spiking, so Bitcoin has to go higher. But the essence of it is inflation spiking. Bitcoin was already factoring that in. Now it had to factor in the major tightening that the Fed was going to bring in.
As Bitcoin in the first half of the year, Bitcoin is dropping steadily and dramatically. Even following the collapse of FTX happened in last month, the Bitcoin didn't tumble to another 50% from its June highs. So it's very interesting to know that how the things on a macro picture seem to be getting worse, even yet the price is holding.
The Bitcoin, this is something I want to show you guys.
Yeah.
So here we have, this is the drop on the Terra Luna collapse. And we dropped from about 31,000 and change down to about 17 and change. And so that drop was about 40+%. Now, if you look at the collapse of FTX, Bitcoin only dropped 25%. And so you could argue that FTX was a much bigger blow up in terms of institutional money being involved and kind of the earthquake that it caused. Yet Bitcoin drops. Okay, it's not the end yet, but we're getting there. And so a couple of the analysis points. So number one, I looked at the comparisons of FTX's blow up and the Lehman Brothers collapse in '08, noticing again, Lehman was a bank. It collapsed. An exchange, FTX, kind of like a bank, but in crypto, it collapsed. Now, how long did the S&P 500 take to bottom after Lehman Brothers? And the answer is it took about 6 months. So then extrapolate that out and say, okay, in 6 months from now, we might be seeing the bottom in Bitcoin. And the reason you can kind of extrapolate this out is because human emotion, you could say, oh, well, that's stocks, this is crypto. But the answer is it's all the same. And the reason it's the same is because humans, you and me, we're the buyers and sellers. And does your emotion change? Does my emotion change? No, greed and fear. It's what rules the market. So you can really extrapolate that out. And the last thing I'll say is, the S&P, when Lehman collapsed, fell another 45% from that point, from that collapse, before it bottomed in March '09. In that case, we should see Bitcoin fall approximately 45% more from approximately that, breakdown level around 18,000 and change. To me, that gives me a target just below 10,000. And keep in mind that max pain is caused when even numbers are broken. You'll see a ton of stops run at 10,000. That could be the bottom when it breaks into the 9,000. So in 2022, we said gold would be Bitcoin and P500. I'm going to re-up. And I'm going to say gold will again outperform percentage-wise the S&P and Bitcoin. But I will make this further out prediction is after next year, Bitcoin will be the best performer going forward for multiple years.
So according to Gareth Soloway, the next 6 months will decide the direction of markets in 2023. What are your predictions about Bitcoin? Feel free to let us know in the comment section below. Also, be sure you like this video and press the bell icon for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.